I used to think silence meant peace. But lately, silence had begun to feel like distance, a quiet void that filled the corners of our home, stretching between Ethan and me like an invisible wall neither of us cared to climb. Our conversations had become mechanical. Did you eat? Did you lock the door? Good night. 3-word exchanges holding back oceans of disconnection. We shared a bed but nothing more. He'd fall asleep facing the wall, and I'd lie awake wondering when we stopped touching. There was no argument, no betrayal, just this slow, suffocating fade into nothing. When Ethan told me that Liam and Noah would be staying with us for the weekend, I didn't react. I barely remembered their faces from our wedding years ago. Old college friends, both single, both always laughing in pictures Ethan showed me. I told myself it was good. Maybe their presence would break the monotony. I had no idea how much would actually break. They arrived on a Friday evening, Liam first. Tall, confident, with that easy charisma that fills a room before he even speaks. He hugged me like we were old friends. Too long. Too tight. His cologne lingered on my sweater long after he let go. Noah followed close behind, quieter, more observant. His eyes didn't wander like Liam's did. They locked, unapologetically. When I met his gaze, I felt a strange tug in my chest, as if he could read things I hadn't dared to say out loud. The first night we played a game of cards around the dining table. The wine flowed too freely, the laughs too loud. Liam kept making jokes that danced on the edge of being inappropriate, and I laughed. Too much. Ethan didn't seem to notice. He was too focused on winning the game or maybe pretending everything was fine. But I noticed. I noticed how Liam's fingers brushed against mine when he reached for the bottle. I noticed the way Noah's eyes lingered when I stood up to grab snacks. I noticed that for the first time in a long time I felt seen. The way they looked at me wasn't how Ethan looked at me anymore. It was how he used to, when we were new, when every glance promised something more. Now, I couldn't remember the last time he looked at me that way. But Liam and Noah, they didn't need promises. Their glances were invitations. Later that night, while the house settled into its sleep, I stood at the window in the guest hallway, sipping cold water from a wine glass. I heard a creak behind me. Door closing. Soft footsteps across the hardwood. I didn't turn around. Can't sleep, a low voice whispered. It was Liam's. Or maybe Noah's. I didn't know. I didn't ask. I nodded without looking. The voice was close now. Too close. I could feel the warmth of someone behind me, but they didn't touch me. Not yet. You're beautiful, he murmured. The words hung in the air like smoke. Thick, dangerous, impossible to ignore. I turned my head slightly. Just enough to see a shadowed jawline in my periphery. But I didn't need to see the face. The voice, the body, the tension, it was enough. I should have walked away. I should have said something to break the spell. But I didn't. I just stood there, silently sipping my water, trembling. The air between us crackled. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I couldn't breathe. He stepped back before anything happened. I felt the loss of heat, the aching emptiness that followed. A door clicked shut somewhere down the hall, and I was alone again. Back in bed, Ethan stirred beside me but didn't wake. His hand brushed my thigh in his sleep. Flinched, not because it startled me, but because I didn't want it. That's when the guilt crept in, soft like fog under a door. What was I doing? Why had I let myself stand there, wanting to be touched by someone who wasn't my husband? I stared at the ceiling, trying to slow my breath. My mind replayed that whisper again and again. You're beautiful. It wasn't just the words. It was the hunger behind them. And the ache it left behind. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the feeling in my chest. But all I could hear was that voice. Why did I hope it was him? It happened the next night. The kind of night that sits too still, like the air itself is holding its breath. Ethan had a little too much to drink. By the time we were all laughing over an old college story, his head was slumped against the couch, and his snores filled the background like static. Liam raised an eyebrow at me. He's out cold. I smiled tightly. He'll be fine. Happens when he mixes wine with whiskey. Noah chuckled but didn't say much. He just stared at me. Again that stare, quiet, unreadable but heavy. It pressed against my skin like fingers without ever touching me. "I think I'm heading to bed," I said softly, getting up. Liam tilted his head. "Need help finding your way?" It was a joke. Ease. But something in his tone made my breath hitch. I shook my head. "I know the way." They watched me walk out. I didn't look back. I lay awake again, this time not from emptiness, but anticipation. I told myself it was nothing, that the flutter in my stomach would fade, that I would hear the front door shut, and both of them would retire to their guest room down the hall. But I didn't hear a door. Heard footsteps, and then my door opening. Softly, deliberately. I didn't move. Someone stepped inside. Quiet. Calculated. The door clicked shut. I swallowed. I didn't ask who it was. I didn't need to. The mattress dipped behind me. A warm breath brushed against my neck. He didn't say a word. Just the slow slide of his hand along my side. Fingertips grazing skin that hadn't felt wanted in far too long. I knew I could stop it. Just one word. One sound. But I didn't speak. When his lips touched the back of my shoulder, I shivered. My body arched into him before I could stop it. It wasn't love. It wasn't tenderness. It was possession need. And I let it happen. Clothes disappeared between shadows. He moved like he already knew me. Where to touch, where to pause, where I'd flinch. It hurt at first. Not from pain. From shame. From the cruel sharpness of knowing I was being touched by someone who wasn't my husband while my husband lay sleeping a wall away. But I still didn't stop. He turned me over. Kissed places Ethan hadn't kissed in months. There was no speaking. Just breathing. Heavy, urgent. Every motion deliberate. Every position a new confession I could never take back. When he lifted my hips and pulled me closer, I gasped. The stretch, the pressure, the overwhelming rush of heat. It made my eyes roll back. The guilt didn't fade, but it tangled itself with pleasure, confusing my senses. I was crying and moaning at the same time. And I hated myself for both. Then something shifted. The rhythm changed. The hands, different. Rougher. The voice that whispered in my ear wasn't the same. Liam. Noah. Had they? I froze for a moment, but the sensation pulled me under again. There were no names now. No identities. Just heat, shadow, motion. Pain, pleasure. I wanted to scream, but not for help. Each position left a different bruise on my conscience. When he flipped me onto my side and whispered filth into my ear, I felt something unravel deep inside me. When he gripped my hair and pulled me back into him, the ache in my hips was nothing compared to the ache behind my ribs. When he made me say what I wanted, forced me to voice it, I realized just how far I'd fallen. Begged. Not for mercy. For more. And he gave it. It was over in silence. No final kiss. No goodbye. Just the sound of retreating footsteps, and the soft click of my door shutting once again. I lay in the dark, sheets twisted around my legs, body sore, thighs trembling. I didn't even try to pull the blanket over me. The room smelled like sex, like sin, like a version of myself I didn't recognize, but couldn't hate. Ethan turned in his sleep beside me. Oblivious, peaceful. I stared at the ceiling. My body throbbed in all the places he hadn't touched. My heart ached for all the wrong reasons. I had been split open in more ways than one, and I liked it. No, I loved it. And worst of all, I wanted it again. Morning came like punishment. The sunlight pushed its way through the curtains, far too bright, far too early. I lay still in bed, every part of me aching, not just my body but something deeper. Ethan's arm was draped over my waist now. His breath steady, soft against my neck. Felt like a fraud. His touch, once so familiar, now made my skin tighten. Felt foreign. Unwelcome. I closed my eyes and tried to will the memory away, but it was still there, burned into me. The sound of skin against skin. The voice in the dark. The pain. and the craving that followed. I quietly slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him. My legs trembled slightly as I stood. The soreness between my thighs was still there, a raw reminder of what I'd let happen, what I'd asked for. I avoided my reflection as I washed up. The mirror would ask too many questions. Downstairs, I found Liam at the kitchen counter, pouring himself coffee like nothing had happened. He smiled at me with that same devil-may-care grin, like we were just sharing another lazy morning. But I couldn't meet his eyes. "Sleep well?" he asked, sipping from his mug. He nodded. "You? Like a rock." I wondered if it was him the whole time, or if Noah had come in halfway, trading places while I was too lost to notice. I wanted to ask, but how could I? How do you ask who you let destroy your marriage? Noah entered a moment later, fresh from the shower. His hair damp, skin still flushed. He didn't say anything, just nodded at me. But that look lingered. Again. Lingering always. And that's when I knew. It wasn't just one of them. It had been both. The next few days blurred together. Ethan was oblivious. He watched movies with them, laughed with them, clinked glasses like everything was perfect. He even pulled me onto his lap once while we all sat on the couch, kissed my cheek in front of them. And I wanted to disappear, or confess, or scream. But I did nothing. Played the role. Smiled. Because the guilt was sharp, but the memory was sharper. I kept remembering every sound, every command, every moan that left my lips against my own will. The way I opened myself for them, no hesitation. The way I let them take turns with my body like I was theirs to share. Worse still, I missed it. By the third day, I started avoiding Liam and Noah. I couldn't be alone in a room with either of them. But even in the avoidance, I could feel them watching me. Observing. One afternoon, Ethan left to grab groceries. Liam was upstairs, but Noah was in the living room, scrolling on his phone. I tried to sneak past him, but he called out, calm, quiet. "You okay?" Froze. "Fine." He stood up, walked over slowly. No rush, just presence. Then leaned in, his voice barely audible. "You were louder than we expected." My breath hitched. He smirked. But I liked it. Then he walked away. My knees nearly gave out. That night in bed, Ethan tried to touch me again. Gently. Hesitant. Like he was trying to reconnect. And I let him at first. I even tried to respond. Tried to match the rhythm of his hand on my body. But I couldn't feel it. It was numb. My body didn't ache for him. Didn't move the same way. Because now I knew the difference between being touched and being taken. He whispered, "I've missed you." And I wanted to cry. Because I hadn't missed him. Had missed them. When Liam and Noah finally left, they both hugged me at the door. Normal, friendly. Just like house guests do. But Liam whispered something as he held me close. "You'll think about it again tonight." He was right. I thought about it every night after. Sometimes with guilt. Sometimes with disgust. But mostly with hunger. Weeks have passed. Ethan is closer now, more affectionate. Maybe he senses something. Maybe he's just trying. But even his kisses feel like apologies for something he doesn't know happened. And me. I still haven't told anyone. I won't. This sin is mine to keep. Buried between my thighs, in the tremble of my breath every time the memory slips in. Sometimes I replay it in the shower. Quiet. Shameful. Other times I fantasize about it happening again. But this time with the lights on. This time not confused. This time asking for both. Because despite the guilt, despite the aching truth, despite the way every position hurt differently, the pain was never what made me say yes. It was the need. And next time, I might just beg for more.